Good evening. It's now 6:30 and I call this regular meeting of the Victoria City Council to order. We begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda this evening is announcements. We have several announcements. First, there is a City Council workshop scheduled for Monday, May 12th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. This is a closed session to provide council a litigation update. All meetings of the City Council, including workshops, are open to the public and held in council chambers at City Hall unless otherwise noted. We encourage anyone wanting to attend our council meetings or workshops in person to contact our city clerk in advance. In other announcements, please make sure to stop by Victoria's downtown on May 3rd to celebrate spring with our local businesses at the Victoria in Bloom event. Many of our businesses will have specials and activities throughout the day. Again, this is May 3rd, and the city's website has additional information on that event. Next on the agenda is I have two proclamations that I'll read from the dais. The first is a proclamation to recognize May 5th through 9th, 2025 as Teacher Appreciation Week. Whereas Teacher Appreciation Day was first recognized in 1953 after Eleanor Roosevelt spoke before Congress, persuading them that there was a need to recognize teachers on a specific day for their hard work and dedication. And whereas following Ms. Roosevelt's advocacy efforts and with the support of the National Education Association, the Kansas State Board of Education, and the Indiana State Board of Education, National Teacher Day was established in 1980 and initially celebrated on March 7th until it was moved in 1984 to be observed the first week of May. And whereas teachers dedicate themselves to providing the best learning experience for our students, whether in person or through distance learning, and whereas teachers provide more than a curriculum to their students, they become involved individuals who serve as mentors and motivators who provide guidance and support. And whereas teachers have a crucial role in inspiring young minds, they educate, they empower the development of our children into well-rounded individuals who reach their full potential to contribute to our community and our society. And now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Deborah McMillan, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize May 5th through the 9th as Teacher Appreciation Week, and that Teacher Appreciation Day is Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. The second proclamation is a proclamation declaring May 2025 as Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas mental health is important for our well-being and vitality, as well as that of our families, communities, and businesses, and whereas mental illnesses impact a significant number of people in America and around the world, and whereas the effects of mental illness extend beyond individuals to their families and friends, influencing families, neighborhoods, schools, and workplaces, and whereas stigma and fear of discrimination prevent many who could benefit from mental health services from seeking help. And whereas promoting mental health awareness and reducing stigma in our communities is crucial to raising awareness that mental health services encompass more than just therapy and medication. Caring for mental health may also include comprehensive services and support that assist individuals in recovering holistically, addressing their social, vocational, and community contributions. And whereas mental health recovery not only benefits individuals with mental health disorders by emphasizing their abilities to live, work, learn, and actively participate in society, but it also enriches the culture of our community life. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deborah McMillan, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize May 2025 as Mental Health Awareness Month in the City of Victoria, Minnesota. Our next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt the final agenda?
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is open forum. This is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not in application at a future date. The Victoria Library has registered to speak in advance, and we welcome Jodi Edstrom, Director of the Carver County Library System, and Patrick Jones, Victoria Library Branch Manager. Welcome, Jodi and Patrick.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and City of Victoria. I am Jodi Edstrom, the Library Director for Carver County, and I'm here with Patrick Jones, the Victoria Branch Manager. He also manages our Chanhassen branch, so we're glad to be here tonight. I'm going to go through very quickly a few, some of the system accomplishments as a whole. As you may know, we have 6 libraries across the county, 4 express locker libraries, and a law library. So we kick it off. We celebrate nearly 1.5 million checkouts in 2024, and that encompasses both our print materials and our digital materials. If you're a Libby user at all and you check out ebooks or e-audiobooks, that's also included in this checkout number. On the next slide, there's a lot of numbers. I'm only going to point out 2. One being our digital increase. We continue to see a pretty significant increase in those ebook and e-audiobook checkouts. So 25% increase again. The big yellow part of the pie is 46%, which is attributed to youth materials, and that's all of our print materials, which makes up just a really huge number to show how much our families and our youth are using our spaces and our libraries. Speaking of youth, we continue to roll out our virtual library card project. We just launched into Eastern Carver County District 112 this last year and are starting to bring grades 6 on with the ultimate goal of giving that opportunity to all grades 6 through 12. And that links their student ID number to directly into our library system as their library card. So really great partnership, way to grow together and to support our students. I won't touch too much on the adult programs, but we did see some great increase in engagement. Patrick will share more about the fun and wonderful things that are happening here at Victoria. In terms of technology, we have all new self-checkouts in all of our branches now, and we also have mobile printing available. So wherever you are, you could submit a print job to one of our branches, be able to walk in and have staff assist you, or it's very self-service model as well. So great access for our communities. Youth, of course, is a huge part of what we do. Our summer reading program, always such a huge hit, and we saw such terrific engagement this last summer. So lots of great things happening ahead this next summer that we're planning for. And of course, our 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program, which we encourage our youngest readers to meet that goal to really help build their literacy skills. We're fortunate to have an internal Dulkey grant program that our staff can apply for on an annual basis, and we did a lot of work in relation to our Spanish collection, Spanish programming this last year. We also laid the groundwork to go fine-free in 2025. So now all of our metro area libraries in MELSA are all fine-free. You won't see any more overdue late charges on your account. I will note, if you have a dog like mine who likes to eat library materials, though, you may still see a lost or damaged fee on your account. And then my last slide is just to share the top checkouts in 2024. So Kristen Hanna's The Women was the top checkout for adults for both print and digital. For teens, it was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is also now a popular Netflix series. And then still coming in at number 1 for youth is Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jodi. Good evening, Patrick.
Oh, hey.
Oh, hey.
I just wanted, the Girl's Guide to Murder is fiction, not a nonfiction book.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, thank you. So, mention numbers. Victoria has really funky numbers compared to all the other branches. Where the system is 49% youth circulation, Victoria's 75. 75% of the materials that check out to kids or teen. So that's just a huge hunk of that pie up there. And one other thing, that Victoria, of course, is the 4th biggest library, so of course doesn't have the greatest circulation. One way we measure circulation is something called turnover rate. That is how often a book goes out. Victoria is like double a lot of the other branches. Every book down there goes out 10 times as opposed to the system average, which is 7 times. So that's pretty spectacular. We do that by doing lots of programming. Jodi already mentioned the 1,000 Books Before K. We do lots of crafts. There's a picture of our book bingo program. No one was hurt during that. Summer reading program we do every year. We do them when we can outside. Last summer we were challenged, it seemed, every Monday with bad weather. So you can see us jamming too many people into the bottom down there. And then we also had our end-of-year summer dance party. There were bubbles involved. Jose is still speaking to me, though. We do adult programming. I want to point out, too, in the middle, we had a writers program, and we did this one at the Vic Rec Center because we thought we'd have a nice turnout for it, and we want to actually do more programs over there, given the lack of a meeting room downstairs. And then you might see this is, I believe, a genealogy program. Behind it is the legacy banner. The legacy amendment, which was passed, I don't know, 15 years ago, supplies funding for library programs. We do lots of craft programs. Those are very popular. They can be done downstairs in those tables with 8 to 12 people. And then again, we do use the outside bandstand for music programs. We did some outreach with the city at the farmers market, and we also go to parks and do outreach as well. And then we have our book sales run by our Friends of the Library. We couldn't do any of this work without the support of the Friends of the Library, and I want to introduce Julie, the president of the Friends, who wants to say just a few words, and then we'll wrap up. Julie?
Thank you. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. I am the president of the Friends of the Victoria Library, and the Friends is a not-for-profit that was formed 10 years ago to create a partnership between the Victoria community and our library staff. We raise funds through contributions by individuals and community businesses, as well as through our semi-annual book sales. I'd like to make a special call out to the Lions Club, who has been very generous in the last 10 years. Funds are used for innovative programs and for learning opportunities of people of all ages. These programs are a valuable part of creating a sense of community in the heart of Victoria. Anyone who is interested in joining this effort is encouraged to contact us through our website at www.friendsofthevictorialibrary.org. We would like to also encourage people to contribute gently used books for our book sales. They can be dropped at the library at any time throughout the year. And of course, monetary donations are always appreciated. We thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you at our big 10-year celebration on Saturday as we usher in the next 10 years of this valued Victoria institution.
Thanks, Julie. So May 3rd is, as Julie mentioned, is our 10th anniversary. Okay, it was really in March, but who wants to do an outside program in March in Minnesota? So we're doing it on May 3rd. We're going to have the Rowe family singers down there. We're going to have people speak ahead of time. And then the best part, cake. And then on the 10th, our book sale is coming up. Our May 10th will be our next Chanhassen Friends of the Library, or Victoria Friends of the Library sale. So that's what we've been doing, which is very busy, very active in this community, and we hope to be a big part of the center of it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Patrick, and we're looking forward to this party next week.
You just want the cake. So, did anyone have any questions for any of us?
Council, any questions? No, carry on and keep up the good work.
Great job.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the council on an item that's not on the agenda this evening? All right, seeing no one, we're moving on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine administrative and do not require deliberation, or are housekeeping items that are required by law. Consent agenda items are approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull anything from the consent agenda this evening?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Any member of the council wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? Or a member of the audience that wishes to pull something from our consent agenda for separate discussion and vote? All right, seeing none, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now moving on to our regular agenda. This could be a lengthy meeting as we have a lot of items to discuss tonight, so thanks for your patience for those in the audience. The first item on our regular agenda is item 6.1, which is to consider the establishment of a tax increment financing district 1 through 10 for an affordable housing project located within Victoria Ridge. I understand that this evening we'd like to extend the time the public has to comment on this item. And while we will take public comment this evening, the staff presentation on this project will be postponed until May 27th. So with that, this is a public hearing. I will now open the public hearing, and anyone who wishes to speak to this item can now approach the podium and address the council. Good evening.
Good evening. I think we're supposed to give name here. Vince Bodette. I live in Victoria at 1185 79th Street. I'm looking into this only now, this project, this tax increment project that we're considering, you guys are considering. And what I'd really like to know is what exactly is the long-term vision that you as a city council have? That is, it's a major decision on your part if we bring in if we allow or enable tax increment financing. I'm pretty sure I know what that is. That is basically, let's leave the taxes down on an improved property to encourage development of said property. Now we've had a lot of tax increment financing in Victoria over the years, and I'm not going to criticize any of that. It's all behind us, and there's been some good things coming from it. However, it's a little different with this because here we are, by way of tax increment financing, encouraging people to come out from wherever they're coming. We're encouraging people to move to Victoria, and that includes the low-income housing. And it was just described a minute ago as a low-income housing project. Okay? I'm not saying I'm against that per se, but not within, I'm beginning to have a problem with it if it's enabled by way of tax increment financing. If the city council here wants to zone in favor of a project that will include low-income housing out on the west side, I don't really have a problem with that. But I'm going to be looking closely at this and asking myself, is there wisdom in enabling and encouraging people to come to Victoria, the whole ball of wax? 33 apartments is what I read in the document of a month or two ago. I don't think that's going to make any big difference in Victoria's culture. But if we're trying to get many, many more people out here, and that's my question to you, what are we trying to do long term? What's the vision thing? I'd like you to discuss that in more detail, articulate what you have in mind for housing out here in Victoria. You have a great development over there that has already been raised and they're opposite City Hall here. But what is the vision thing going forward for people that you want to come to Victoria? I think I can leave it at that, and I will look forward to that discussion as you sort this out. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Baudette. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council on this public hearing on this item? Okay. Seeing no others, we're going to continue this public hearing to May 27th. At that time, we will hear the report from staff and additional information on that. Council, can I get a motion to continue the public hearing
Motion to continue the public hearing
to May 27th?
to May 27th, 2025.
Thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second? We have a motion and a second from Councilmember Evansky. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda, item 6.2, is also a public hearing to approve licenses for Omni Brewing Company for on-sale intoxicating liquor, brew pub off-sale, and Sunday sales. Presenting this item is our city clerk, Claudia Edstrom. Ms. Edstrom, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Omni Brewing has submitted an application for a intoxicating liquor license, a brew pub off sale, and Sunday sales. Omni will be is in the process of acquiring Inky Brewing. So as part of our municipal code, we are required to hold a public hearing before any new intoxicating liquor licenses can be issued.
Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Edstrom?
No?
All right. Perfect. This is a public hearing, and I will now open the public hearing. So if there is anyone who wishes to speak to this item, please step forward. Anyone wishing to speak to this item? And last call. No pun intended. Seeing no one, I will now close the public hearing and open for council discussion. Council, any comments, questions on this item? All right, seeing none, I will now entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt the resolution approving an on-sale intoxicating liquor, brew pub off-sale, and Sunday licenses for Omni Brewing and consider waiving the new license fees from April 28th to June 30th, 2025.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we have a comment from Ms.
Can
Nelson.
I clarify? It does say consider waiving the fee. That is something that council can consider to do. If it's a motion to waive the fee, we would just want to strike the word consider from that.
Okay. You want to make a motion
I'll redo it. Should I
to
do
waive
it?
the fee?
So I'll redo the motion. So motion adopting the resolution approving an on-sale intoxicating liquor, brew pub off-sale, and Sunday licenses for Omni Brewing and waive the new license fee from April 28th to June 30th, 2025.
Very good. Can I, and now we have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are now moving on to item 6.3, which is another public hearing regarding the cable franchise applications for Comcast and Midco. Presenting on that, we'll hear from Assistant City Manager Alyssa Nelson again. Ms. Nelson, the floor is yours again.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council members. As you mentioned, yes, today we are holding a public hearing for cable franchise fees, and we're also considering negotiations for cable franchise fees. So how did we get here? Well, on Council, February 24th, you approved the notice of intent to accept applications for cable franchising. From that, then staff published the notice in the paper as required by state statute. That was done in the Waconia Patriot. And the application deadline for submittal was March 27th. We did receive 2 applications. On March 21st, we received an application from Comcast. And then on March 25th, we received an application from Mid-Continental Communications, otherwise known as Midco. And both the applicants are in the audience this evening, and when you open the public hearing, they both have presentations for you as well. So this is a fairly state-regulated process. So we're on steps 3 and 4, or part of 3 and 4. So tonight we're here to hold the public hearing regarding both these applicants and the cable franchise. And then council, you will also have an opportunity to direct staff to negotiate the cable franchise agreement, if that shall be your wishes. Council, you will not be able to act or accept applications at this time. That will be something that we'll bring back after the negotiation process is settled. So just something to highlight, both companies are currently within Victoria city limits in construction. Currently, they are installing fiber or internet services. That is something that we don't have the ability to manage or control other than the typical right-of-way permit process that is held at the state and federal levels, as well as Metronet that is not seeking a cable franchise with the city, but they are providing fiber and internet services to Victoria. We also have City Engineer Kara Guerin in the audience today, and she is available for any questions to talk about the current construction project when it comes to both of these companies, or all 3 of these companies, installing fiber within the city easement and right-of-way. I'd also like to note that we do have an incumbent cable provider in Victoria, which is Mediacom. They are currently in the ground, and they've been here for quite a number of years. And then we also have other communications providers in the city currently, which is CenturyLink. So having both of these additional cable providers and internet service providers would lead up to 5 different communication providers within the city. That would be CenturyLink, Mediacom, as I mentioned, Metronet, and then the 2 additional, Midco and Comcast. And I'd also like to note that, again, we don't have any regulation over who can come in for fiber and internet services. So let's say, for instance, that you choose not to move forward with the cable franchise process, both of these companies would still be able to move forward with construction build out for fiber and internet service. And with that, I will suggest that you open the public hearing, but I also wanted to see if there's anything additional that our attorney Vos wants to speak to on regarding this item.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I thought about, there are a couple of points I want to get out, and I thought about whether saying them now or after you hear from the applicants would be better. I think maybe if I could just take 2 more minutes and give you the points now, it might help focus your attention on these good folks, and then it may also inform what they're going to say to you a little bit. So just a couple of points. Staff has been doing a great job. This statutory process in Minnesota is a little bit awkward, candidly. And so there's a little bit of work for staff to do to sort of proctor this through, and they've been doing a good job. So, but the things I want to say were, first of all, the facts that we have here, the facts of you having CenturyLink, which actually provides internet service, I think primarily through a company that's a subsidiary of theirs, Quantum Fiber, they're a provider, Mediacom's a provider, Metronet, of course, as you're well aware, building out your community, and then now 2 applicants to be internet, phone, cable providers, so a total of 5. That is truly unprecedented, and so I don't want to lose sight of that. The staff has pointed out that there are some challenges that this proposes, and I think you'll hear a little bit more about that. I want to be clear. I mean, this is truly unprecedented. There are a number of communities in Minnesota where there are 3 providers: the incumbent phone company that's gotten into cable, the incumbent cable company that's gotten into internet and phone. That's a situation that exists in a lot of communities. There are some communities that are benefited by having 3 providers. A third provider has come in to compete with the 2 incumbents. There are precious few, if any, cities in Minnesota with 4 providers, and none, literally none to my knowledge, that have 5 providers. So truly, I think, unprecedented, the amount of competition folks are looking to provide to your community. I'm characterizing it as an opportunity. It poses challenges too. There's just no doubt about that. So, but I want to be clear about that. The other thing is, and this will be yet to come, but it might be helpful for you to hear now. There is a legally recognized standard for cities in deciding whether to grant a franchise to a competitive company or competitive companies. I'll lose my voice. And that standard is this. Cities are to look at the legal and technical and financial qualifications of these applicants. And state law, again, there's this process in state law for considering this. That state law process required the companies to submit applications that contain a whole bunch of stuff that's set out in state statute. So the city staff and I didn't come up with the list of questions that they had to respond to. It's actually state law that spells out those questions. And the purpose for those questions in state law is to make sure that a city gets adequate information about the legal, technical, and financial qualifications of the companies that are coming before you. It's up to you ultimately to decide if they're qualified or not. I've taken a look, of course, at their applications. I've looked at many dozens of these competitive applications, and I will just tell you my initial first blush view is that both companies are going to be qualified. They're going to be legally, technically, and financially qualified. And so I guess I'm just giving you the heads up that literally denying an application, denying a franchise to one of these companies, I think would be legally difficult based on the information that I'm seeing in their applications. And then the last thing is, and I think you have a sense for this, the incumbent company, Mediacom, the incumbent cable company, under state law, again, it's antiquated and it's a little awkward, state law protects, in effect, in the cable market compete fairly or evenly with respect to the franchise fees. You know that Mediacom pays you franchise fees. You have to impose the same kind of franchise fees on these companies if you grant franchises to them. So that's an area of parity. And then also you have to be in parity with respect to public programming, the community programming that we do that goes out on the cable system. Those obligations need to be uniform, generally speaking. And then the last area, which is usually the most controversial, is the area that a new company, a competitor, serves. I will tell you, again, back to my unprecedented comment, almost always when a competitor comes into a community like this, the city is saying, great, we want competition, but we really want you competitors to serve everybody. We don't want you to pick and choose in our community, serve everybody that the incumbent is serving. Well, in this case, you've got 2 companies that are coming forward, and we've had discussions with them outside of their applications. Both are prepared to do that. Both are prepared to essentially serve your entire community. And so that usual give and take where we're encouraging the competitor to meet this level playing field obligation, that really isn't the discussion that we've had, at least yet, with either company. They're both prepared to build out your communities. the last thing, and I'll be quiet, is, as Kara would tell you much better than I could, all of this unprecedentedness, all this opportunity for competition really does impose some burdens on the neighborhoods that are having build-outs occurring. You've heard about that more than I have, of course, but that's a real thing, of course, and we're not blind to that at all. It is a challenge, for sure, and staff is aware of that. So I'll stop there. I wanted to get those out, though, so that you can have that information in your heads as you hear from these folks.
Very good. Thank you, Attorney Bowles. Any questions for Bob before we move on? All right. All right. At this point, I'm going to open up the public hearing, and we do have the two applicants in the audience this evening indicating their desire to speak toward this item. So Comcast is our first applicant, so I'm going to ask them to come to the podium first and then followed by Midco. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Absolutely. Mayor, council members, my name is Carly Barga-Werner. I'm the Vice President of External Affairs for Comcast here in the Midwest region. So excited to be in front of you tonight. The Midwest region of Comcast is headquartered in the Twin Cities region, and our almost 800 employees of the Midwest region of Comcast live, work, and play in these communities that we serve, including Victoria, probably at Floyd's one too many times, or maybe that's just me. As your packet notes, we have been in informal conversations with the staff for some time. We've been expanding our network in the Twin Cities region. We built Wayzata a couple years ago. We're in the process of completing our expansion into Chanhassen. We'll be finishing that this summer. And we were very excited and wanted Victoria to be the next city out here that we serve. And so really excited to talk to you about that prospect tonight. Now, we did submit our application, and as Bob said, our kind of bona fides around our financial, legal, and technical qualifications are in there. So I'm not gonna go into that in detail, but happy to answer any questions you have about that. But what I wanted to take this opportunity to do tonight was to really introduce Comcast to you. Now, you probably have heard of us. You may have conceptions of who we are, but I want to take this opportunity to tell you where we're going, and hopefully you're going to be pleasantly surprised by what you learn. Do I have the clicker? All right. So here we go. This is us over 6 years of expansion. We are a global media and technology company. You'll see here some of the fun events we can bring to life, like the Olympics. If you didn't watch our coverage of Paris on Peacock, our streaming service, you're going to get a chance to watch the 2026 Winter Olympics coming up here. And of course, our theme parks, other assets that we own, but of course we are the nation's largest broadband provider. And I'm here to posit to you tonight that our scale and innovation and investment that we can make is going to be a difference maker, or we're going to bring to residents of Victoria a different value proposition than perhaps the service providers that you have here today. Now, this slide is not going to tell you anything you probably don't know, but I think it's interesting nonetheless. Broadband usage is skyrocketing, and the trends are not changing anytime soon, right? With streaming, with gaming, with AI, with cloud computing, we are just going to see more and more of the usage. And for Comcast today, over 70% of our network usage is entertainment, is streaming. That trend is not changing either. As you can see here, did someone say streaming sports? The 5 biggest broadband usage events that happened over the last 10 months, and they all had to do with sports streaming and with gaming when a new game came out and everybody was downloading it. So what does that mean for residents of Victoria? That means that you need a provider that has a network that's built for the future. And I'm here to tell you, as Comcast has the largest fiber network in the nation, we're running at a 99.9% reliability. Why is that? Because we've got processes in place that we're monitoring the network 24/7. We're finding problems before they exist. We have AI now that are fixing problems in our network. But we do fiber. We know fiber the best. But that's just table stakes at this point for us. We're really raising the bar because we've asked ourselves, well, how are people using the network? And that goes back to those stats I was showing you before about the convergence of media and technology. And that's where we're meeting people today. So you'll see here what we have done is develop the best Wi-Fi superiority. 90% of devices in your home, more than, are connected to Wi-Fi, right? Nobody is plugging in the device in their modem in the wall anymore. I remember those days. No, my kids are never going to see those days, right? And so that's what we're solving for. We have developed world-class gateway modems. We're about to roll out our XB10, which is going to be the first modem in which customers can do symmetrical speed Wi-Fi in their house, as well as connect up to 300 devices. Now, we already know the average Comcast customer has about 36 Wi-Fi devices in their home. We have some super users that already have that 300 mark. We are meeting that with our technology. The other thing that really, I think, is a value add for Xfinity customers is our robust Wi-Fi network, hotspot network. Now, we have over almost 50,000 Wi-Fi hotspots, Xfinity hotspots in the Twin Cities. So what does that mean? Say you're out and about in a waiting room or at a coffee shop, or you're at a restaurant and your kid brought his tablet and he wants to get onto YouTube and you want him to because he's bothering everybody. Chances are you're gonna find a Wi-Fi hotspot where you are in the Twin Cities that you could access as an Xfinity customer for free. And the best part about it is that it's secure. It's secure, and that's huge. And then if you're traveling, you know, again, our nationwide network has over 23 million Wi-Fi hotspots. So if you're in Chicago or Denver or Boston, any of the major cities and markets that we serve, you're also going to be able to access those Wi-Fi hotspots. That's just a value add as an Xfinity customer. And that's how people are using internet these days. On top of that, we asked how also can we use this how can we really converge our network, again, to meet people and our customers where they're at? And we have a mature, sophisticated mobile product that we've had for over 7 years. We've been able to prove out that bundling, adding your mobile to your internet package saves customers money. It's an average of over $1,000 a year of our Xfinity mobile customer savings over the big three carriers. Now, why? Again, that magical word, Wi-Fi. Over 90% of internet or cellular or smartphone traffic, travels over Wi-Fi and not cellular networks. So while we are partnered with a 5G nationwide cellular network, less than 10% of our customers' smartphone traffics are traveling over that, and that saves them a lot of money. And again, it's accessing that robust Wi-Fi network that we have as Xfinity Comcast built. And again, we're just constantly innovating this product. We just rolled out our Wi-Fi Power Boost, which allows, again, those Wi-Fi hotspots to let an Xfinity user experience speeds they're out about. That's like 10 times the speed of the cellular network. So it really comes in handy if you're like me last Friday at their child's baseball game at Bennett Field in Minnetonka, the same time the Timberwolves game was on. I used that Wi-Fi Power Boost to get the best of both worlds. And so we're just continuing to really innovate that product as well. We're best in class on our mobile. And we just rolled out, and I really want you to know this, a 5-year price guarantee. Where an internet customer now can lock in a price for 5 years, as well as a lot of value adds that come with that package, which includes that gateway modem that I was just telling you about, that world-class service modem. It comes with a year of a free Xfinity mobile line and a couple other great values there in this 5-year price guarantee. No contracts. Customer can just have the 5-year price guarantee. Now, those are just a couple of the products that we offer. And here's the great thing. I was just saying how our scale and investment in innovation really sets us apart. The other thing that really sets us apart is that we are hyperlocal. And we have over 15 retail locations throughout the Twin Cities region. Got one in Minnetonka, Ridgedale, Eden Prairie. We're about to open one in Chanhassen. So places that are very convenient to residents here in Victoria, and they can go into those stores and talk to our professional sales agents about what package is right for them. We've got everything from a prepaid, real price value product all the way up to, like I said, bundling your mobile internet. We also have a home security product that you can go into the stores, touch, see, feel, see how it works. Find out, what package is right for you, because we've got something literally for every class user. Now, I would definitely be remiss if I did not talk about Comcast Business and what a game changer that would be as well for businesses here in Victoria. Again, because of our scale and technology, we can serve any kind of business, from these fantastic local businesses here, independent businesses here downtown, all the way up to a Target that's got campuses in different states and different cities. We have a solution for any kind of business. And the best part about it, too, is that we are heads and tails advanced in our security. We are consistently 24/7 running security for these businesses that we know find that to be one of the most important ways to protect their assets these days. And last, and again, this is definitely my favorite part, because this is our great team that gets to do this work, and we are committed to the communities that we serve. You will know us, you will see us, we will be present. We have a whole team, and part of it is led by Stacey Nelson Kumar, who's joined us today. She's our Director of Community Impact, who will be in your community, finding out ways we can partner. We have for over a decade been a leader in digital opportunity. Table stakes on this is our Internet Essentials product that we've had, again, for over a decade. It's a low-cost product for that's a high-speed broadband product for qualifying households. And for example, during the pandemic, we partnered with the Eastern Carver County School District to make sure that information was out to every household, and not only that, a code for free internet through the school to connect every kid during distance learning. Our presence and scale and products allowed us to be that trusted partner for the school district during that time. We also have lift zones. We have over 100 in the Twin Cities region. This is free gigabit Wi-Fi to community centers, rec centers, places where children are gathering to learn. Adults come for workforce development, digital skills, literacy training. So there can be free, fast, robust Wi-Fi provided in those areas. And just a consistent sponsor of activities that are important to the communities that we serve. We've already signed up to be a Goldways Community Partner sponsor for Victoria this summer. We're very excited to see some T-ball teams that are powered by Xfinity. So of course we were out doing this work before we even got our franchise. And so with that, like I said, in our application is all the information about our financial, technical, and legal qualifications to serve here. And I'm here to answer any questions that you have about that, but just really want to emphasize we couldn't be more excited to serve the residents of Victoria and bring this fantastic world-class technology to their doorstep.
Thank you, Carly. Any questions for Carly? All right, thank you. You were very thorough with your presentation. Thank you.
Awesome.
And now we have Midco. stepping up to the podium. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, mayors and council members. My name is Andrew Curley. I'm the Senior Director of Government Relations for Midco. And similar to Carly, I want to take the opportunity tonight to kind of introduce you to Midco, who we are, what we've been up to in Victoria to date, and kind of what we have in mind going forward, what we're proposing with our cable TV application. So just a little bit about Midco, and actually this has a brief video on this slide.
In a world where connections matter more than ever, Midco is here to ensure you stay linked to what truly counts, for what's happening now and for what's next. Because we're ready to spend less time worrying about connectivity and more time planning for your future, building your business, and making memories with those around you with our reliable, multi-gig fiber-based services. As we approach each new day with a fiber-forward mentality, every mile of fiber that we lay is an investment in your future and our possibilities together. But our connections go beyond just technology. We're dedicated to making a positive impact in our communities, from supporting local schools to sponsoring community events. Midco is proud to stand by the people we serve as a force for good. Get ready to experience the power of Midco, where the connection goes beyond fiber.
So that video just shares a little bit about kind of who we are as a company, but I'll expand on that throughout this presentation. As you can see here, the services we offer, obviously we're talking today about a cable TV franchise. Midco does offer a video product called Midco TV that does come over our fiber-based internet services. So we obviously a fiber internet provider as well as a phone company, and we will be later this year launching a Midco mobile product as well. So just a little bit about our history as a company. Midco was founded in 1931, so we're coming up on 100 years of existence. Midco was founded in St. Paul as the well worth theater company, and they got that name from our founder, Lloyd Benson, because he wanted to be well worth the dime that patrons spent on a movie, and that's an ethos that we've kept as a company throughout our history. In 1953, we moved into South Dakota and launched the first cable TV station in the state of South Dakota, and then in 1982, we became the first company in the state of South Dakota to launch long-distance services, telephone services. So technology, communication, connectivity have kind of always been that backbone of the company. And then in 1991, we started connecting some of those cable systems that we had via fiber. At the time, that fiber was used to expand the capacity of our video product, but of course, that fiber soon became had another purpose. And so in 1998, we were able to launch home internet services across our footprint. And of course, you know, since then, in the last 30 years or so, we've been what we call a traditional triple play provider of video services, internet services, and phone services. And then in 2021, we took that next great leap in our connectivity by announcing we're investing over $500 million in our Fiber Forward initiative. And that's really accomplishing two things. First, we're upgrading our current communities that we serve to push fiber deeper and deeper into our network to increase the speed and reliability of that network, as well as expanding our network to new communities, which of course leads us to this area and to Victoria. So today, Midco has 17,000 miles of Midco owned and operated fiber. Primarily that's in Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. And then we have a little bit in Wisconsin, and then we're also in Lawrence, Kansas. So that's kind of the upper Midwest is really what we talk about as far as the Midco footprint. And so we're currently in this area serving Minnetrista, Greenfield, and we're working on expansion projects in Orono. We also will be doing work in Shorewood, Excelsior over the next couple of years as well. This fiber network, we call it 5 nines, 99.999% of the time it's up and running. We likewise monitor that network 24/7, 365 from our network operations center. And we have redundant fiber rings throughout that footprint that I just talked about to make sure that if there is ever a weather incident or a fiber cut, that we've got multiple routes to every customer to try to keep them up and running, like I said, 99.999% of the time. Because of this commitment to our network, Midco has been honored to have a couple of different awards over the years, including Cable Facts, which is an industry publication, named us the top multiple service operator of the year in 2024. Ookla, which is a third-party validator of kind of internet speed and consistency, consistently ranks us #1 in several of the markets that we serve. And as an employee, I can vouch for this last one, as Midco is consistently named one of the best mid-sized employers in the country. And one you won't see listed on here, one that we're particularly proud of, is we've received multiple J.D. Power Awards for customer satisfaction at the residential level. It's something that we really take pride in as a company. And it really comes back to having local customer support. So we make sure that we have teams that are local. And actually I have with me tonight Eric Householder. He's our field operations manager for this area. So Eric's teams are the ones out driving the Midco trucks, installing customers, making sure if there is an issue, they're on site. We try to have those folks local, nearby to every customer. We also offer 15-minute service windows. So if you call into Midco, say, hey, I need somebody to come out, we'll give you a 15-minute window, and we meet that about 96 to 97% of the time. A lot of providers you call and say, yeah, we'll be there between 8 and noon or noon and 5. Midco gives you a 15-minute window. And we also have multiple ways you can get in touch with our teams. So as a Midco customer myself, I like to take advantage of the text option. I can text in saying, hey, what's happening with my service here? Go about my day and get a response pretty quickly. But we also have digital opportunities. You can email in, phone in, of course. And then we have dedicated folks dealing with business customers as well. And then kind of the third stool from Midco is we have a great network, great customer service, and we want to be involved in the community. We call it being a force for good for the communities we serve. When Midco comes to town, we want to be part of that community. We have the Midco Foundation that gives out grants to nonprofits. We have teams that sponsor things in the community, and we also have a program called Midco Acts, where our employees go out and volunteer in the communities that we serve. And these are just a few examples of things we've done in Minnesota. This is just a small snapshot of that, but some of the opportunities and sponsorships and partnerships we've developed here in Minnesota. And you can see We Can is one in the area that we recently had a partnership with. We actually were honored to host our corporate board meeting actually at the rec center here in Victoria in November, and then our corporate leadership was able to go out and present. That was actually on the last slide, that bottom right picture, some of our corporate leadership presenting a foundation check to the We Can organization in Mound as part of that visit in November. So that's a little bit about Midco and who we are. I just want to touch a little bit on kind of our process and what we have in mind for Victoria. So just take a step back a little bit. We started conversations with the city last June. We had a meeting with Dana and with Alyssa kind of talking about, hey, Midco's interested in serving the city of Victoria. We did get a welcome reception there. We were able to start construction in 2024. You can see from that map, we kind of started in that Lake Bridge development on the west side of town. We were able to do construction to over 750 addresses in Victoria in 2024, and we were able to complete the process to about 315 of those addresses before the end of last year. And then fast forwarding to this year, we've now, as been noted, started construction. Some of those areas that we didn't wrap up in last fall is where we've started this year. And we have been working with city staff on permitting, and we have permits queued up for the entire 2025 construction season. And what you can see from this slide, that picture is actually just a snapshot of the midco.com/Victoria page, where you can see the green is areas where we've already launched. Purple are those areas I talked about where we did some work last year and we're wrapping up this year, and we'll be launching in May. And that site's an opportunity for folks to go see what we're up to and where we're working. Just to briefly, I want to touch on kind of our process, obviously scoping out the area, and we're putting that plan into action. And that's where we really need to collaborate with city staff, with other providers to make sure that as we go through the process of construction, we're kind of communicating with all the right people. And so we've been really appreciative of the city staff here in Victoria of that process. We've been, during the construction season, meeting weekly with city staff to say, here's where we've been up to, here's where we're going, getting feedback from the team here at the city, and it's been really communicative and collaborative effort, and so we've been very much appreciative of that. And then, of course, we go out and construct the work. We recognize that this process can be disruptive. We're working in people's yards, working in the public right away. We want to make sure that people are aware of what we're up to. We also know that we want to leave the yard as we found it, and so we have a pretty robust restoration process that we'll go through as we do the construction process. And then once we get the fiber in the ground, we go back and do the work to activate that service and make it available to those residents. And of course, we're open to installing services then once we get the network up and running. And we do kind of do it on a rolling basis. So as we talked about that we were able to do some construction last year, we were able to launch services in that area without having to build out the rest of the area. So it's kind of as you finish a neighborhood, you can launch that area and then move on to the next area. And throughout this process, of course, we want to be communicative. We want to make sure that when folks see us out working, they're not, who the heck's Midco and what are they doing in my neighborhood? So we have a pretty robust communications process. First, we send out letters saying, hey, here's who Midco is. Here, we're doing work in the area. As we get closer to a neighborhood, they'll get an additional communication saying, hey, we're working in your neighborhood. And then once we're doing work on a particular street, they'll get what's called door tagged. We'll go door to door with a tag saying, hey, we're doing work on your street in the next couple days. And on both that postcard and on that door tag, there's an 800 number that goes directly to the cell phone of our local construction leader. So Jacob, who I know the Public Works team here has gotten very familiar with, he's the one that actually received those calls. So if a resident says, hey, who are you guys, what are you doing? Or has a concern about what we did in their yard or anything like that, they can call directly and get someone from Midco who's on the ground doing the work and hopefully get a quick, very, very quick response. And so we want to make sure that we're communicating with the residents in multiple different ways. And then you'll see this throughout some of the neighborhoods, yard signs again, just making sure people know who we are, what we're up to, and why we're in their area. And lastly, we try to personalize some of that communication. So as I mentioned, we do have midco.com/Victoria where folks can go to. They can see the map of the work we're doing in the area. They can sign up for services if they're interested. They know they're going to want them once we do launch, and they can get some of those questions. We have a construction support page on there as well. And then that last line, we do want to work with city staff. So I know that here in the city of Victoria, there's landing pages on your city website for some of these projects. We want to make sure that we're answering some of those questions for city staff. We know that folks, as much as we want people to reach out to us, we know some people are going to be more comfortable reaching out to the city. So we want to make sure we equip the staff with the answers to some of those questions. And that's what we've been able to do with some of those landing pages. And of course, as I mentioned, we've been working with several different communities in the area, and we've had a very collaborative and communicative process, and it's gone really well for us, and that's obviously why we're looking to do more expansion in this region, because we have seen a welcome reception. And I would just note that in the areas we have launched here in Victoria, we've had a very strong response from the residents. So I'll close just by noting, obviously, as Bob noted, you've got a lot of options here. You've got a lot of folks interested in serving Victoria. We've appreciated that it's kind of been a very free market. You're kind of open to competition. You're looking for options. We also recognize that this is a lot. And so we want to take our cue from the city. If you're, as we've laid out in our application, as we've talked with the city about, we're interested in serving the entire community. We're also not a company that's going to come to you and say, here's our plan, take it or leave it. So again, we've had a communicative and collaborative process with the city staff so far, and we extend that to you as well, that we want to take your feedback on this proposal. If it's something that you're interested in, we'd like to move forward. If there's something different you'd like to see from us, we'd open to that conversation as well. So I'll leave it with that and stand by for questions.
Very good. Thank you, Andrew. Any questions for Mr. Curley before we carry on with our public hearing? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak to this item? Please step forward. Mr. Baudette, welcome back.
Maybe I didn't come here for this, but it is an interesting topic to me. We've seen, and this is kind of going to be a question of sorts too, we have seen Metronet and their big cables, there's big blue and orange cables all over Victoria and elsewhere in Carver County. And I'm going to assume, and I just want to I want to know if I'm right or wrong, I'm going to assume that those cables are only for Metronet. Metronet is only going to be selling, they're not going to be selling content. And I guess what I also want to know is, sounds like these other two, Midco and Comcast, are going to be selling content that would make it different, that would make them different from Metronet. I want to be sure I understand that right. I am tempted to get away from Mediacom. Frankly, I don't think they've served us well. We probably all know this. Their prices went way up, and they had simultaneously dropped a lot of programming options. And I asked them over at the office, why are they doing that? And the answer was, well, really what we're trying to do is get people away from wired cable and into streaming, which is the same as Roku and others. So my last question is, just from my own understanding, the content that would arrive from Midco or from Comcast, Again, the vision thing, what is it at the TV set? Is it coming by way of streaming content from the modem, or are we still envisioning a hard wire coming from their modem up to our TV sets? So maybe we can get a couple of these things, again, sorted out. Maybe everybody knows them but me, but I'd sure like some answers on that if we can get them. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure these folks would love to talk to you, Mr. Baudette, after this meeting and let you know what their services will be. All right, anyone else who wishes to speak to this item? Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, Carly, please. We don't
Mayor,
want to
council members, I'll
belabor
be
it too
quick.
much. Yeah.
But, obviously I could talk about this all night long, but I will be quick. Well, certainly, as far as Comcast goes, we're really trying to meet customers where we're at, and we're recognizing that streaming, as I said in my presentation, has become a very popular item. And so what we did years ago was really develop this X1 platform where, and I don't know if anyone's seen it or had it, where on your home console as our kind of landing page is you can get our traditional cable as well as the streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Peacock, understanding that that's how customers are consuming information. And so it would be fiber wire. We're building fiber, hopefully, if you approve our franchise, to everybody's house. And then I talk about how to bring it into the house, and that's through that gateway modem. And then all your TVs, I'm sure these days, have a wireless connection to them. And then from there, the customer will choose either the traditional cable option, as we would provide, and all sorts of different packages. We also have a streaming option. And you could download any of your apps then right there on our landing page.
We'll ask about pricing later.
All right,
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that for us. All right, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak to this item? And one more time. All right, seeing no one, I will now close the public hearing and open the floor for council discussion. Council, questions, comments?
I don't have a question, but I would just say, obviously competition is good, so I'm glad we are getting more competition in the city, but we've also heard a lot of complaints from residents, and so I just hope we can make sure we're listening to our community members, we're communicating. Communication is going to be key because, we already had yards dug up last summer. We're going to have it 2 more times now here. So, and unfortunately, our city staff are the ones who probably have to hear this the most. So, a lot of angry people because their yards are getting torn up and they don't want it. Some of them, right? A lot of them do, but a lot of them don't. And it's, unfortunately, you can't go around, right? So communication has to be key, and, being respectful of the neighborhoods, because, we want the competition, we want the products, but, we want our residents not to have dirt thrown in their yard, and, so that's all I have.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think one of you mentioned, I think maybe it was Andrew, the yard, as you see it, it should be the same when you come back and you're done with your work, right? I mean, it's a lot of work to dig and everything, but just respect that. These are folks' yards, and just communicate, like Chad said.
And a lot of them are really appreciating their brand-new sod because they're new developments, and, they lived through a season of mud and they don't want to do it again. So, all right, the point is well communicated then. All right, any other questions, comments from council?
It's probably for Kara. What's the real estate and the right-of-way look like for adding 5 providers?
Ms. Guerin, welcome this evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you for answering that question, and I did not send you a note and ask you to ask it ahead of time. Real estate is becoming a challenge, so particularly the problem we're having today that's generating the complaints that are happening today relates to Comcast installing in the Huntersbrook neighborhood, which interestingly enough is a new neighborhood, but already we have Mediacom, Metronet, gas, electric, boulevard trees, sidewalk, fire hydrants, light poles, all in the real estate that you just mentioned. So Comcast contractor is trying to find space to install down there right now. So that's generating a lot of challenges. Our staff is spending significant amount of time trying to respond to questions from the Comcast contractor, trying to figure out where exactly they're going to fit within the right-of-way, and that's an area where we have 60-foot right-of-way with a 10-foot drainage and utility easement adjacent to it. Midco is permitted in that neighborhood, but hasn't installed there yet. So I would consider that to be an area with more space. As we continue to move into older parts of the community where we only have a 50-foot right-of-way in some areas, that challenge is going to be more of a challenge for these folks who are trying to figure out how to install. And then in some examples, take for example the Victoria Ridge neighborhood that was approved recently, where we approved private streets with a reduced right-of-way. I think we only have 40 feet to work with, and 10-foot drainage and utility easements and reduced front yard setbacks, also with boulevard trees and sidewalk on one side of the street, and light poles and fire hydrants and all sorts of fun things. That's what's creating the challenge. So as these contractors go in and try to fit their infrastructure in the right-of-way, it is becoming increasingly congested. So that is the challenge that staff is dealing with, and is creating a lot of the problems that we're seeing as the subsequent utilities are coming in. Midco and MetroNet last summer, we were able to coordinate the construction to have one contractor working in one half of the city at one time, and the other contractor working in the other half of the city at another time. But eventually, they are going to cross over and start working in the area where the previous contractors worked last year. So that will be another time that everybody's yards will be getting dug up again. And then if Comcast comes in, that's going to be a third time. So we have to figure out how to fit them, and your residents will be continuing to contact all of us. So I think we are, which Bob can speak to, we are required to permit these folks to go into the right-of-way, but it is resulting in significant amount of staff time.
So what happens if theoretically you can't find space, and part of this contract is you have to match what the current so how does that, I mean, I guess we're talking more cable than fiber, but they're running their cable through the fiber. So how does that work if, I don't know, maybe this isn't realistic, maybe they eventually will find a spot, but if they can't, what happens, I guess?
Well, and we've heard that this is unprecedented, so
Right.
let's talk that through, because that's significant. I mean, if we aren't allowing enough right-of-way in our developments for these kinds of infrastructure, I mean, that's significant.
And I'll just note that your right-of-way, the 60-foot right-of-way and your 10-foot drainage and utility easement is typical for a residential development, but yes, that has been my phone call to your city attorney.
All right, Attorney Volos, you're on the hot seat here.
Like the city engineer, I appreciate the question because it gives me an opportunity to say something I'm sitting here thinking I want to say. And as to the unprecedented, I'll get to your specific question, but it's unprecedented, and this is a lot of telecom competition by I think I said it on a call, by Manhattan standards, let alone by Victoria, Minnesota standards. So, but I want to say, and I want to say it to the extent residents are listening, Mayor, you said that we, the city, hear the concerns that are being raised by your residents. I can't emphasize enough. I've done many competitive cable franchising processes. I've never come anywhere close to spending as much time and energy on right-of-way related issues, both just with your staff, with all of your staff and both companies, with me and each company. I mean, this is being taken incredibly seriously by the city staff in trying to find solutions to the naturally occurring, frankly, conflicts that are happening in neighborhoods and issues that are happening. So I don't want anybody to think that the staff is unaware that this is a big thing. It's a big thing, and the staff is acting accordingly. As to your question, and this is an unsatisfying answer, but so state law regarding city authority over rights of ways was enacted in 1997, so it's not that old. It's old, but it's not that old. And the law is, this is me talking now, the law is written in a way where you can get any answer you want out of it, unfortunately. There's a lot of ambiguity about the right-of-way law, and there's been no litigation about it. So there's been no court clarification of what the law says. That's great for lawyers. It allows me to say that we have all of the authority that we need on the city side to deal with things. Of course, the providers have a different view on various issues that come up. The reality, though, is on your question about congested right-of-way, there is actually a provision in the statute giving cities authority over this, that says cities can reach a conclusion that rights-of-ways are congested. The city has to make certain findings. The city council has to make certain findings to reach that conclusion. And then should a city reach that conclusion, the city has additional authorities over permitting of the right-of-way. Theoretically, in that scenario, a city could literally say, even though you both companies have franchises now to build out, this right-of-way is so congested that the first one there gets to be there and the second one there's no room. First come, first serve. That is a theoretical thing that I've never seen actually play out, at least yet. Maybe it's coming in Minnesota, but it hasn't played out yet. So the statute really does contemplate that someday many cities may have so many providers that we've just run out of space. And then there is authority for cities to say no, ultimately, to the next provider in the door. To the point about are we sort of there yet? Look, I could sit here and list all of the things that we have been talking about, we, your staff, have been talking about ways to manage this. We've talked about a wide range of ways to manage this. One of them is the thing I said earlier, which is, might we just say no to one of these companies? Just say, it's only gonna work out for one of you and the other can't come here at all. I think as a practical matter, that may be hard for some residents to hear, because some residents may prefer one provider or the other and want that provider to be in their neighborhood, number one. Number two, I've already said, legally, I think it would be challenging to deny a franchise to either of these companies, at least based on what I've read so far in their applications. But we've been talking about other alternatives for trying to mitigate the problems that are created when you have this much construction happening. So a long-winded answer, but the answer is that the staff really, it's unprecedented, but the response from the staff is pretty unprecedented too.
Which we understand. We always know that our staff is awesome and treats our residents really well. I mean, that high level of customer service doesn't happen everywhere, and we know that, and we appreciate that from our staff, but we're gonna ask for some patience from our residents as well as we try and wrestle through this unprecedented, I mean, how many times can we say that? Unprecedented in Victoria. I feel like we should have an award.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, now I'm gonna learn that there is some other city in Minnesota with 5 telecom providers. I am definitely not aware of it though. So if it isn't unprecedented, it'll be news to me.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. All right. We close the public hearing. I've lost track of where we are. We close the public hearing. Any other comments or questions from council? Seeing none, I'm going to entertain a motion from the council here on this.
Motion to direct staff to negotiate franchise terms? Is that what we need? No?
Yep. With both companies?
Both companies, yeah.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on. Our next item, 6.4, is to consider the final plat, site plan, and building materials review and PUD amendment for the Victoria Ridge Second Edition residential development. Looks like Mr. McCann, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. Give me just a second to get my presentation pulled up. Okay, great. Yes, tonight we are considering a final plat, PUD amendment, and a site plan and building materials application from Inland Development. They are the applicant in this situation, but Golden Valley Land Company is the master developer that came back earlier this year and received approvals for the first edition of Victoria Ridge. So just keep that in mind as we look ahead here. So the first edition for the 70 townhomes that you previously reviewed went through the sketch plat process back in January of 2024, then received preliminary approvals in May with final plat for that first phase in September of 2024. The edition that we're looking at this evening, second edition, consists of the apartment building, and then the third edition is anticipated to be the remainder of the townhomes in that development. So where we're at in the process, we are at final plat, which is the final stage. That's where we review the final details of the development. We finalize a development agreement. They take everything, they get recorded at the county when everything's said and done. So location and existing conditions for the property. It's located south of the Marsh Hollow development and the railroad. It's right off of County Road 11 on the west side. Current site conditions, it is a vacant farmstead with fields. They had structures that were recently removed, which you can see on the aerial. There is some slight topography with some wetlands on the west side. There are no trees on the apartment site in the southeast corner, which we'll be talking about tonight. And if you've been on County Road 11 recently, you've noticed that there's some ongoing grading out there. That's because of the grading agreements that were approved a few months ago by the council. So their applications this evening. The first being their final plat, so they're just proposing the single lot and block for the apartment building. Then the site plan and building materials review. We'll take a look at their proposed site plan, architecture, and lighting plans, and then their PUD amendment for some parking modifications and an increased unit count. So here is the plat that was submitted for consideration. They're proposing a 165-unit apartment building with various private amenities. They're also proposing a 20% affordable component, which comes out to about 33 units in the building. As I mentioned, they're looking at just Lot 1, Block 1 for the building with no outlots, and then a 20-foot wide drainage and utility easement for the extension of sewer and water to the building. Then zoning and comprehensive plan, it was rezoned when first edition for Victoria Ridge came through last year. The applicant is requesting a PUD amendment to modify the parking standards and the increased unit count. What they were previously approved for was for 144 units, so they're increasing by 21 units for this building. Looking at the density for this site, it comes out to about 40 units per acre. That is above the guidance for 12 to 36 units per acre, but we ran this by the Met Council back in preliminary plat and final plat for the first phase of Victoria Ridge, and since it's a phased development on a single parcel, they did not anticipate any required comp plan amendments for this second phase. So looking at what was previously approved back in September with the first edition with Golden Valley Land, these are all the standards. We're going to be taking a look at the parking of 1.89 spaces per unit, and then that 144 units approved for the apartment. Because what they're proposing is a reduction from 1.89 parking stalls per unit down to 1.77. Also a reduction in the amount of enclosed parking from 1 stall per unit to 0.98 stalls per unit, so really slight modification there. And then the increase to the unit numbers that I mentioned from 144 to 165. With any PUD or PUD amendment, I just always like to incorporate this slide. It talks about how PUDs should be innovative, creative, and provide for flexible development that are sensitive to environmental, cultural, and economic considerations. So the process-wise, what you are considering this evening is an ordinance for the final plat. Then here's the proposed architecture that was included in your packet. They are proposing private amenities, including underground parking, a fitness room, a club room, an outdoor dog run, which you can see here on the screen, as well as an outdoor pool and sauna and an indoor sauna as well. Unit sizes range from 578 square feet to 1,305, and the exterior materials include stone veneers, precast concrete, lap siding, and board and batten trim. So for the lighting and signage, they do have 25-foot tall parking lot light poles proposed in the locations highlighted in green throughout the parking lot. This would provide sufficient lighting coverage for the residents of the apartment building, as well as a monument sign in the northeast corner of the development highlighted in blue. Staff will review the specifications for that when they apply for a building permit for that signage. Looking at the landscaping, they do meet all of our minimum requirements, including open space, the number of plantings, their 40-foot wide buffer, with those 2-to-1 slopes that were approved with the PUD back in September. They're also providing the necessary spacing and types for boulevard trees, foundation plantings, and tree preservation is not applicable to this phase because they do not have any existing trees on the apartment site. So for parking and pedestrian connections, our code requires 2 spaces per unit for apartments with 1 space enclosed. As I mentioned, there was a deviation previously approved down to 1.89. The applicant this evening is requesting 1.77 spaces per unit with that reduction as well, and enclosed parking from 1 to 0.98 spaces per unit. They also have trail connections shown along Ridgeview Boulevard and the reconstruction of County Road 11 that is set to occur later this century or decade. It's park dedication. Yeah, century's a long ways away. It's decade. Park dedication. So for 165 apartment units at 1.5 residents per unit per our code, that comes out to about 3.3 acres of land dedication. That would take up almost the entire 4-acre site, so that's not feasible. So we are expecting the cash fee in lieu of land, which comes out to about $350,000. And then just to note that private amenities that I mentioned earlier are not eligible for parkland dedication. So access and streets, they're proposing access from Ridgeview Boulevard with the connection to County Road 11. With the connection being a right in, right out, as shown here on the screen. Carver County has also approved the traffic study that was attached to the case for this item, and those improvements that I mentioned are anticipated for 2027 or later. And then site utilities are proposed to extend from the Marsh Hollow development to the north, as well as Victoria Ridge First Edition. They're doing some work out there right now to get the utilities under the railroad, which will eventually connect to this apartment building as well. Those will follow that 20-foot wide drainage and utility easement I showed on the plat earlier. And then just to note that there is a condition of final plat approval this evening that the well must be permitted for pumping prior to landscape installation. As we all know, the well's complete. It just hasn't been permitted yet by the DNR for pumping, so that may impact their landscaping schedule. And then for stormwater management, it's subject to the CCWMO rules. Wetland impacts are subject to their rules. They have to plat wetlands and buffers out in outlots deeded to the city, and the pond access points must meet city standards as well. And then here's a list of what was approved with the preliminary plat resolution. There's still 2 items that are kind of floating out there. The first one being that signage, which I mentioned we'll review when a building permit comes in for that. And for well number 6 to be complete and permitted. As I mentioned, it's complete but not yet permitted, so we've carried that over to the final plat proposed conditions for you this evening. These were included with your report. As I mentioned, there's the well number 6. There's also compliance with PUD standards, city attorney's plat opinion, recording the plat, all the basic requirements for a final plat. And with that, we did have a public hearing at the Planning Commission meeting on April 15th, which was properly noticed. Staff did not receive any comments, and we did not have anyone speak at the public hearing. Plan Commission did recommend approval 5-1. And they also discussed some of the proposed PUD amendments, the affordability, and the traffic study. And then I'd just like to highlight all of our internal departments who review these applications, such as our fire department, engineering, public works, as well as community development, and externally, not in this case, but we typically do have the DNR look at these applications, as well as Carver County Transportation and the CCWMO. With that, I have some sample motions for you on the screen. We do have 3 motions this evening. Representatives of the application are in the audience, and I can stand for any questions you may have as well.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. McCann. All right, council, questions, comments?
I just have one for you, Brian. When do we expect the permit to be for pumping? Do you have any guidance on that?
Mayor and council member, I do not have any insight on the permit date. I don't know if City Engineer Guerin has any insight on that.
Ms. Guerin, welcome back.
Hi there, Mayor, members of the City Council. I assume we're talking about the DNR permit?
Yes, for well number 6?
Sure. It's in process, and I can't answer that for you yet. But what had transpired between preliminary plat and final plat was we made modifications to the water storage facility located out by Rhapsody Park, which really reduced our concern with being able to move forward with these projects south of the railroad tracks. So it reduced our comfort level with moving forward, but we wanted to the landscaping provision in there in the event we find ourselves in a drought condition. It gives us some little bit of flexibility in case we run into some significant delays in the permit.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, other questions, comments?
I just had a question on the breakout. I think the units are increasing by like 21, and then you gave a square footage range, but what does that break out to in like 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom?
Hi, please introduce yourself.
Yes,
for the
hi,
record.
Jaquel Hyder. I'm with the Inland Development Team here to present. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for hearing us tonight. Excited to be back. We were here back in December for some TIF discussions, had great conversations with the Planning Commission a couple weeks ago. We also broke down the unit sizes for them. So alcove unit, which is a smaller 1-bed unit, would range around 600 to 700 square feet. A 1-bed would be between the mid 700 to 900 square feet. And then a 2-bedroom unit would be between 12 and 1,300 square feet. Typical Rambler, for instance, a new construction Rambler, 1-level finish with the unfinished basement is about 1,400 square feet. So we have, again, small 1-bedrooms, which is considered an alcove, 1+ den, 1-bed and 2-bed units in this property. So a good variety, and that's highly based on our experience in the multifamily sector. We have a lot of western suburb properties in our portfolio, and then market studies that tell us, really what the demographic is that's going to be leasing. A lot of the demographic is actually existing residents or residents that are trying to move back to this community and aren't quite in the home buy and purchase either situation by choice or by force, based on the price point. So having a variety of those units in that kind of range is really important. The 3-bed and up kind of start to compete with where the townhome market is. Under alcove, we're really not seeing that really, really young professional, which would be a studio in this market. So that's kind of the range of units and why we selected them.
Got it. Thank you.
Can you remind me, I think maybe I asked this question the last time you guys were, but so with the affordable units, right, 20%, how do you split those up, right? Is it some of each of your different things, or is it more someone comes in and they qualify for affordable and they want that specific one, then it's, how does that work?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Roberts. The question is the breakdown of the 33 units and how we break it up between the unit sizes. We have about 40% 1-bed and then 40% 2, and then the remaining 10% is the kind of smaller alcove units. Right now, the breakdown is 4 alcove units. We would have 14 1-bed and 15 2-beds. So perspective of the percent of units, it's equal.
Okay.
That'll be specified in the TIF agreement as well. And I wanted to bring up the affordability. I know we had a comment from a resident, and I know it's really important to this city. An example of a 50% AMI, I've got a chart in front of me from most posted latest income levels, it's really breaking down by the household size. So I'll remind you, I'm just giving you an example of a one-person household, but a one-person household at 50% AMI would make $43,500 a year. That's your teachers, your firefighters, you're starting, that are starting in their career. I actually have a real example of someone that I know that was actually trying to find an apartment in this market, in the Chanhassen Victoria market, because her parents raised her here. And she had a hard time finding something that she could get into because of, her income. And she went to a 4-year degree. She got her teacher license. She did everything, she thought she should to get the American dream, and had trouble finding housing in the community she wanted. So that's a really good example for you to understand what affordable housing means and why you're incentivizing it within a mixed development. We do a lot of these projects with 20% affordable units, and those residents thrive within our building. They're not in one spot. They're all over the building. Their units look the same. They just might have a different income because of the job profession they chose over their person next door. And so we really believe in it too, and appreciate where we're at in the process and the support so far for the 20% units at that 50% AMI level.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
So that it's abundantly clear that there is zero ambiguity on this topic, that this is not an affordable housing project. This is an 80% market rate development where the remaining 20% meets the threshold of 50% AMI for affordability.
Yes, Councilmember Vensky, correct. So the TIF process and the affordable housing TIF statutory requirements would allow for those affordable units to be rented out, but the remaining 80% are going to market rate, just like they typically would in this market. And in order to go through that process, the property management team will have to report, right, to make sure the residents that are in those 20% units that are affordable are accurately portraying their income, while everybody else that is paying market rate, it's based more recently to what their income should be at that level.
Right.
So yes, market rate apartment project, 20% affordable units.
Thank you for clearing that up. So, and council, just so that, we can close the loop on this topic, we've waxed poetically about the need to meet all of Victoria's demands for housing, from people who live in $1 million houses to people who need housing to come serve our community in other ways that, that we sometimes people take for granted, as to, who busses their tables or who is working in some of the smaller local businesses that are starting up and trying to make a go of it so that they can expand their businesses. The economic reality is that we need to be able to attract those residents and keep them here so that we have a community that is balanced, that is poised for future growth. And I think that, I'll go on record saying that I think that adds to our community, and we've made conscious attempts to address these and not sat back as a council on our heels and pretended that we're doing something about it. This actually puts this topic front and center, that with this project we are actionable and we're accountable and we're creating these opportunities.
Good point. Thank you, Councilmember Evansky. Any other questions or comments?
I have one small question. It wasn't abundantly clear to me as to why somebody on the Planning Commission gave a nay vote. Was it for the planned unit development? Was it based on the building materials? If you can explain to me what your thoughts are on that. I know it's a little bit hearsay, but.
Yeah, Mayor and Council Member Pedersen, I didn't get a direct answer from that commissioner after the meeting either. Based on the comments during the meeting, I'm going to suggest it was likely due to the increased unit count, but I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
Thank you.
Thanks. I have to say, I'm a little uncomfortable with the parking requirement downgrades. Less than one unit. So when you're renting an apartment in this building, are you provided a parking space as part of your rent, or is that an additional cost to have a parking space underground? Or if you don't pay that extra cost, then you have to park outside?
Mayor, great question. I'm prepared to address the parking because I know it's something across the board in every jurisdiction we get asked. Again, in our experience in the suburban market, we typically have multiple projects, 6 that I can address right now that are actually still within the property management team's portfolio that are gonna be managing this. At a 1.6 to a 1.65 parking ratio, we're at a 1.77 here. And that 1.6 to 1.65 includes both enclosed and non-enclosed parking and guest stalls. We've seen that be successful because we look at 2 different metrics. Units, bedrooms, and overall parking ratio. So you have 287 parking stalls here. 159 are enclosed and 128 are on the surface. We're just below that 1 enclosed to 1 unit ratio because of actually a couple things. So in that parking garage, there's columns that come down. If you would study that kind of, you probably can't see it in this plan, but if you study between those parking stalls, every about 3 stalls, there is a column that comes down. And so the parking stall width is an 8.5 requirement, but we did 9 because of where that column location would come in at the front of the stall. We've learned residents don't have a great parking experience. So we went to a larger parking stall inside the building than the city's requirement, which then in counter, we went to less than a 1-to-1. Inside the building, we're at a 0.98 there. So that is something, if somebody wanted to rent a conditioned parking stall inside the garage, yes, they would pay an addition to their rent to rent that, and they would reserve that. Those are rented on a first come, first basis, and we typically limit, if you have a 2-bed unit, we would limit, that people can't rent more than 2 per unit and not kind of take the bulk of that. Then the surface stalls, 128 surface stalls, would then be, they'd still have to have that in their lease, so there isn't parking chaos, and you don't have a resident with 6 cars, per their unit that start taking up the parking. But that would be for those that maybe don't want to pay a premium for an inside garage stall. Sometimes we see fluctuations in the winter months where more people want to be inside, and so that'll vary. But again, the 1.7 overall parking stalls to us is extremely healthy compared to other projects we have seen. We actually just recently did a study. We have a property that our management company is managing in Minnetonka off of 394, and they had studied the guest parking stall for 2 weeks. And they had a camera out there, and they said at the peak of any weekend hours, there's 15 guests for that property. They had planned for 30 guest stalls. On average, they were seeing about 5 to 7, and that's a 174 unit building. So again, to give you perspective of what we've experienced, there is a 1.25 parking stalls per bedroom in this building and a 1.77 parking stalls per unit. So if you look at it per bedroom, another metrics we typically look at is a 1-to-1, 1 stall per 1 bedroom, because a lot of times you might have some renters that have just 1 person in that 1-bed unit. Every 4 you might have a couple, and then you might also have a 2-bedroom where you actually have 1 person in that 2-bedroom that's choosing to use that other room for an office. So it really, again, based on our experience, that 1.77 is higher by 10% than any of our other projects. And so we feel confident in that, given this isn't a transit forward community, and we assume everybody's going to have a car in this building.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions, comments? All right, we're going to take this in 3 separate motions then. So, council, I will entertain the first motion.
Motion to adopt the resolution approving the final plat and site plan and building material requests for Victoria Ridge Second Edition.
Thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I will entertain a second motion, please.
Motion to adopt ordinance 480 ZC, amending the PUD for Victoria Ridge.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the final, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution approving summary publication of ordinance 480 ZC.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda, 6.5, is to consider a final plat and rezoning for request for a quick trip. And again, Mr. McCann, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Tonight we have a final plat and rezoning request from Tradition Development on behalf of Quick Trip. It was previously reviewed for sketch plat back in August and most recently for preliminary plat this January. As I mentioned before, our final plat is where we look at the final details for the development, approve the DA, and get everything prepared for recording at the county. For the location and area, it's a single parcel west of County Road 11, north of County Road 10, south of the railroad and the Victoria Ridge development that we just reviewed. For reference, this will be directly south of the apartment building that we just took a look at. The parcel area is about 48 acres, but the project itself is about 4 acres located up in the northeast corner of the parcel. It is proposed to be a 9,100 square foot convenience store with 10 gas pumps and a single lane car wash. The existing conditions for the site, it is vacant farmland with fields. There are minimal trees on the entire parcel, but there are no trees on the Quick Trip site at all. There's also a 120-foot wide power line easement, which I've highlighted in yellow on the screen here, with one of those towers being circled in red. That easement is measured 62.5 feet on each side from the center line of those towers. So you imagine the middle transformer line running through there. That easement is 62.5 feet on each side of that. The applicant is currently working with Excel for the road and trail encroachments, which I will highlight here shortly. For the land use review, they're proposing a Lot 1, Block 1 for the Quick Trip site and 2 outlots for future development of the remaining 48 acres. They are also requesting the final rezoning from agricultural to C2 Community Commercial District. As you may recall, back in January, they did have conditional use permits, which were approved with their preliminary plat for their proposed gas pumps and car wash. And they also had a comprehensive plan amendment, which City Council authorized staff to send to the Metropolitan Council, which has since been approved by the Metropolitan Council. So here is the final plat that was provided to us. As I mentioned, there's that power line easement here. You can see they have some slight encroachments for the extension of Crossings Parkway within that easement, but they also have the Lot 1, Block 1 with drainage and utility to get utilities to the site and D&U over the private stormwater pond as well. So here's the site plan that was submitted. With the 10 gas pumps towards the south side of the site with the single lane car wash on the north. They're also proposing 63 parking spaces. Some changes that have occurred since preliminary plat that you might notice, the first one being that they've incorporated a right turn lane into the site from Crossings Parkway. Previously, it was a straight and right turn single lane. Now they have 2 lanes, one being straight and one being a right turn into the site. They also relocated the vacuums and air pump, which were previously over here on the site. And they also incorporated an additional fire lane on the north side here for full fire access turnaround throughout the site. As I mentioned, they needed a comprehensive plan amendment. The area was previously guided for flex employment and has since been changed to commercial since the Metropolitan Council approved the amendment last week. And then looking at rezoning, the property was annexed back with the sketch plat request in August of last year. What happened after that annexation occurred is that the property automatically became agriculturally zoned. The applicant is proposing to rezone to C2 Community Commercial. I do have a draft ordinance attached to the case for City Council consideration. As you can see here on our bulk regulations table, their proposed building greatly exceeds all of our minimum requirements for the C2 district for this type of use. Now, looking at the site plan, I thought it was worth mentioning that we will not be reviewing architectural and lighting. Quick Trip will have to come back with a separate site plan and building materials application once they have actual renderings and exterior materials planned for the site. So this won't be the last time you will see Quick Trip. They will come back again. Looking at the parking, as I mentioned, they have 63 spaces provided with the site. It meets our minimum requirements for retail stores and service establishments. The minimum requirement would be 41 parking spaces, so They're exceeding that by over half of the requirement. They're also compliant with our minimum drive aisle and parking space dimensions as well. They did provide some specifications for signage. They do have 2 wall signs proposed, as well as a canopy strip for the gas pumps. They also have various directional signage, which will be posted throughout the site, directing people to like the vacuums, the car wash, the store itself, the gas pumps, things like that. And then they will also have a freestanding sign. I'll also note that any signage that has dynamic display requires a conditional use permit per our new sign code. So when they come back with that site plan and building materials application, we'll also likely see a CUP amendment to include this signage as well. They did also provide a site circulation exhibit showing that the truck radii for our largest fire truck and their largest delivery vehicles will meet the turn radius to navigate throughout the site, no problem. They also have a few pedestrian connections, such as sidewalks noted in blue along Ridgeview Boulevard and Crossings Parkway, as well as a separate sidewalk connection in red here from Ridgeview Boulevard, and then the future trail with future County Road 11 improvements. And then for park dedication, our code calculated as their site area for 5% of that comes out to be about 1/5 of an acre or $22,000 relatively. Previous guidance from the Park and Recreation Committee was that they anticipated cash for this site, but a greater park for the entire South Growth commercial area should be considered with potential developments in the future. Looking at landscaping and buffering, they meet all of our minimum requirements for open space, the number of plantings, as well as those boulevard tree types and spacings. They have not provided foundation plantings around the building. That's something we'll anticipate to see with the site plan and building materials application as well. But they have the 30-foot required landscape buffer with that slight deviation that was approved by the council to accommodate that fire lane on the north side of the car wash. Then moving on to the city engineer review items, they do have 3 intersections incorporated with this development. The first one being a full access on the west side of the site from Ridgeview Boulevard. The second being a full access intersection onto Crossings Parkway with that right turn lane that was provided. And then thirdly, a full access intersection onto County Road 11 with a left turn and a right turn in those 2 incoming lanes. For the site utilities, those will be extended down Ridgeview Boulevard from the Victoria Ridge development to the north. As I mentioned in the last item, another similar scenario here with well number 6, that the landscaping should not be installed until that well is permitted for pumping by the DNR. And then for grading and stormwater management, same thing as always, subject to the CCWMO rules. Those wetlands and buffers should be platted as outlots. Pond access must meet the city requirements, and the wetland impacts are subject to their rules. As I mentioned, there's that private stormwater pond, which they have here, as well as the city stormwater pond to accommodate Ridgeview Boulevard and Crossings Parkway runoff. Here are the conditions that were attached with the preliminary plat resolution back in January. As I've mentioned, all of these conditions appear to have been met. This item 11 here has been carried over to the conditions for final plat approval. Here you can see at number 8, that is just in case we run into stacking issues along Crossings Parkway with that blue intersection that I outlined. With the full access here, we anticipate there may be some issues once the entire approximately 80 acres of commercial development is built out. So we just want a condition in place that if that intersection needs to be upgraded to a right and right out, that Quick Trip and the city will work together to come to a solution for that if need be. With that, we had a public hearing at the Planning Commission on April 15th. They did recommend unanimous approval, 6-0, but they had expressed some concerns with future development in the South Growth commercial area as it relates to County Road 11 and future improvements out there regarding access and safety for potential residents going in and out of that area. So they just suggested that staff coordinate with the county to discuss the need for additional access out in these 80 acres of future commercial area. And then our internal review consisted of the fire department, engineering, public works, community development. Externally, once again, DNR did not have to review this one because it's outside of shoreland, but Carver County Transportation approved the traffic study for this and the Victoria Ridge development to the north, and the CCWMO also reviewed this application. With that, I have some sample motions for you on the screen. Once again, we have 3 motions to consider this evening. A representative of the application is in the audience, and I can stand for questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. Council, questions, comments?
I just have
Councilmember Roberts.
Can you go back to one of the site, like showing the layout with the parking and, so did they give a reason why they're moving the vacuums and stuff? It seems like it's more the front of that, like you'd think you'd want it not taking up prime space right by the potential front door, like why they want it there versus at the exit of the car wash.
Sure. Mayor and Councilmember Roberts, that was actually a request from staff. And the reason for that being is the way the car wash is oriented. They enter from the west, and then they would either have to take a sharp U-turn here to get back out of the site, or they'll have to come down through this area. We just wanted to reduce some congestion in this area by relocating the vacuums and air pumps.
And then I'm just trying to think about the entrance and the exit on 11 here. Most quick trips that I think about, right, going into Waconia, it's you're coming into town, or Carver, right? Like you're coming into town. This is kind of out, on the main roads. Like, I mean, I know there's discussion about that, right? Like it could eventually be a right in, right out. I just am worried, like, I think about Marsh Lake Road and how bad of an intersection that is. You got people zooming across 10, people trying to turn left there. I guess it's hard for me to picture how far away exactly that, but I just worry a little bit about people trying to turn left there, getting out of I mean, I'm not saying it's a deal breaker, but it makes me a little concerned because we've seen it in other intersections. So more of just of a point of.
And Carver County did review this traffic and.
Mayor and council member, that's correct. And part of the reason for that condition number 8 that I showed with the potential evaluation in the future for right in, right out is because right now Quick Trip's going to be the only user out there. Until that commercial area expands, it's not entirely necessary to have a right in, right out until we know what else is going to be out in the area. So if we have some much less intense uses going out in our commercial area, maybe a right in, right out isn't needed at all, but we wanted to build that option in just in case we need it.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions, comments from council?
I actually have a question.
Councilmember Ivansky.
How quickly and by what method would, and maybe this is a question for Golden Valley, will this facility be walkable from Victoria Crossings? We're going to have a pretty significant amount of townhomes in there. We're going to have, just moments ago, we talked about, 100 plus units of apartment. Like, this seems like this is like going to be actually a golden opportunity for both Quick Trip to have hundreds of customers just like within walking distance. I want to get a sense for how accessible and how quickly that will be, and so that we're not having residents be put in harm's way or creating a traffic hazard for people who are driving through there.
Yeah, Mayor and council member, absolutely. So I think this slide is probably the best one to use. So here's the Quick Trip site where it will go. in the corner. This triangle parcel, you can't see all of it, but just directly to the north is the entire Victoria Ridge development. That's those 134 townhomes, as well as the 165 unit apartment building. They do have trails along Ridgeview Boulevard, which will come down through Victoria Ridge and connect down to the Quick Trip site. Regarding walkability and the amount of time it would take to walk that, a couple minutes. It's very close and very accessible.
Okay, so do we have a sense in distance? Like, I mean, I can almost see somebody's going to be looking to, like, air quote, cut through. Would we have some suggestions here on being able to make that a trip, a shortcut, so to speak, but with the intention that it's more I mean, logistically, yes, you could walk down the sidewalk, but you know, the reality of people's behaviors, they're not going to walk 400 feet to the west, walk 300 feet. They could see that, hey, in 30 or 40 feet, or even less than that, I'll hop that. And what do we have as a concept of, you know, good neighbors working with each other?
Yeah.
Make that access.
Mayor and Council Member Vansky, that's a good point. I'll just note that anyone that does attempt to cross from the development to the north, the apartment building, they're going to have to walk up and down a berm, which also has significant plantings on it. I would guess that would deter a number of individuals from crossing the site, but they did not have a proposed direct access walkable path to the north, if that's what you're mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm less interested in a deterrence, more in creating something that's walkable easily with perhaps stairs in the berms, so that, you know, there is, you know, I'm
A path option or a route.
I'm sensitive to, you know, like we talk about all the time, you know, this is the small little thing that builds a sense of a community, and, you know, rather than, you know, having structures that isolate. I mean,
I think we're gonna have our trails around here though, so right? So I mean, you had another slide
Yeah,
that
where
showed
was the trail?
right, so this,
Yeah, so there will be sidewalks on Ridgeview Boulevard and trail on County Road 11 eventually.
So I think the concern about maybe making a little trail that kind of goes over the berm is the fact that the traffic is circulating through that,
Landscaping.
well, you know, through this.
well, have we even contemplated it? Because the turnaround is a recent addition for, you know, to have both fuel delivery, supply delivery. You know, hopefully the day will never come that we have to run a fire truck through there. I mean, I'm just thinking about you know, having really an access point between the two property owners so that they can make life easier for both of them. One, make it easier for residents of the apartment buildings to be able to carry groceries. It keeps them off, you know, it keeps them off the, certainly driving, they would potentially eliminate that. Effectively, you know, in some respects, this will become a mini supermarket for the people who live there. I mean, I think Quick Trip is done well, will almost have their shelves cleared out almost every day because there's just so many residents nearby. And it seems fitting that there's a better access point between those two properties and have these two property owners work for a common benefit of both the business and the residents that are going to be directly to the north of them.
Good comments. Anything else? All right. Seeing no additional comments, we'll take this, we have 3 separate motions on this as well, and I will entertain the first motion.
motion to adopt the resolution approving the final plat for Quick Trip number 1792.
We've got a motion. How about a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion carries. The second motion, please.
Motion to adopt ordinance 481ZC, rezoning the property from agricultural to C2 Community Commercial District for Quick Trip number 1792.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion carries. And a motion to adopt the resolution approving summary, I guess I'm making this motion. A motion to adopt the resolution approving summary publication of ordinance 481ZC. Can I get a second?
second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mayor needs to have her name in the minutes once in a while, apparently. All right, council, there are no more items to come before on our regular agenda this evening, so moving on to reports and emerging issues. Attorney Vos, you're up first.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Hardy, anything from you?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just real quick, three of us and council members, so the mayor, Councilmember Rife, and Councilmember Patterson, along with Jen Brewington, Community and Economic Development Director. It's late, excuse me. And then me, we all went to a conference last week. So I just a minute and report back about that conference. It was the NATO conference, so the National Association of Development Organizations. And that conference largely focused on economic development and regional economic development. So I think it was well worth our time. There were a lot of really great discussions and great sessions where we learned about as we think about our South growth area and our Western growth areas and even downtown West, how to leverage the strengths of our existing community and the natural surroundings that we have in terms of economic development. So you don't necessarily have to go out there and always think about when you're thinking about commercial development properties and attracting new businesses to the community. You don't always have to think big and grand and go for the big companies. It's leveraging your community's strengths. And so we were learning about the different tools and the different strengths that we have and how we could work with the different tools and the different potential businesses and partners to attract the development that fits our community and fits our community's vision. So lots of great ideas. The region that that was focused on was kind of the Midwest and Western states. So there's a lot of agriculture in that. So there was a lot of discussion about I'll call it agro-tourism, and then economic development that really focused on the agricultural industry and what that means, and along with a big focus on digital technology and how that's transforming maybe the light to medium use industrial areas. So lots of good things to think about, especially as we're starting to, with the Quick Trip project this evening, starting to look at growth and development in our South growth area. So I would just pass it over to the mayor and the other council members that were at the conference if you have anything else you'd like to add. But I do think it was well worth our time, and I think there's a lot of great things that came out of that that conference for us to be thinking about.
Yeah, and Dana did a good job summarizing. The only thing I would add is partnership was a big theme, and partnership not just with your current community, but also looking to your education, your medical providers, all of those kind of big pillars that are in your community and how you can work together with those. So just a really great regional approach. And I think it gave us some great ideas on how we can move forward. So
completely agree. I think the one session with Keith Cook, data-driven economic development, was excellent. And I think we built a contact there who agreed to even offer his time over a conference call and advise, and that's excellent. Some great networking contacts for us to leverage.
And not only that, but a tool that we already own that we can better utilize. for.
Yeah, Keith does Esri, excuse me, Mayor. Esri, which is our GIS system. So the county does, we partner with the county already. They provide us staff and through that partnership, access to GIS. So it's leveraging the GIS system not only to tell our story, but to really slice and dice the data to help us make decisions.
Any other comments?
For me, it was absolutely educational just on the new acronyms. I mean, having been in this role for 3 months, I got to learn a whole new language. But I think one of the key components, and it's something you don't necessarily always think about, but how do you eat a dinosaur? One bite at a time. And that's kind of where a lot of these things started is, hey, we started small. There were 3 of us that got together and we built it up and we built it up. And there's a level of stick-to-itiveness that I think is required. And a lot of the case studies were just inspiring on how they went from very small to now there's a 100-person development shop within the city. So not only educational, but also inspiring.
Yeah, persistence is the key. All right, anything else from council this evening? All right, seeing no more items coming before the body this evening, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.